Hey guys, I've been having a really synchronistic day today and I've been really excited to share with you guys about it. And so I'm going to start right off the bat with what started my day on the right foot is I was listening to this audiobook, Healing Chakras by Anadea Judith, and I was on the chapter of the throat chakra, and this quote just kind of set the tone for the rest of my day. And here's the quote, I'm going to read it to you. Communication is sometimes less about the content, but more about the rhythm that we enter into with each other that takes us to a larger and deeper place. And that larger and deeper place is an expansion of consciousness. It's about when you hear something that really hits you as the truth. And so fast forward, I'm in class. So yes, guys, I'm a substitute teacher on the side, and well, you know, it's been a really rewarding job because of how much seeing what I was and seeing what we grow from has taught me at the age of 34, going back and looking back and seeing, you know, what our development is. It's just been mind-boggling. And well, anyway, I was in this class, new class, year 9s, so they're like 13 years old. I was getting a lot of this resistance against, you know, taking directions from me as the new teacher, and I'm used to this. It's fine. It's normal. You know, their tribe. I'm the new guy. They should be testing me. This is actually healthy for kids to be doing, especially if they are in numbers and they know each other already. And I'm that new person, and so I usually kind of take it quite slow in terms of gaining their trust before I become a bit too authoritarian, so they can trust that my intentions are for their best intent. My intentions are for their best intentions, for their best hopes. It's for their growth and education, and my attempts of offering the best that I can with everything that I know at this stage in my journey. And so I have a few things that I like to, like a few sayings, stories in my wheelhouse I like to throw out there. And there was this girl who was doing the work. We were correcting these exercises. It was Spanish. And she didn't want to read out the sentences in Spanish. And you know, there's all these games being played around the exercise, around avoiding it, around like, oh, but sir, but this is what usually happens, but this is what usually with the teacher, and this is why I can't. And I stopped and I looked at her and I said this truth. My truth came out, you know, my truth as to why I'm asking her to do this. It's not just me just relishing in my authority. It's me trying to share truths that have offered me love, and what I'm diagnosing in her reluctance. And I told him this, and this is something that I want to be sharing on the podcast loads, because it's been a bit of an awakening for me since I've learned it, and I hope that it can offer an awakening to you, and I'm going to go into that quickly. So for me, what I understand from an awakening, and this is judging from mine, which one day hopefully I'll go into on this YouTube channel, but also from what Brene Brown has stated as her awakening, which she said it looked like a mental breakdown. She's doing all this research into social care and trying to find a way around vulnerability being the answer to these people's needs. And that no matter how much data she compiled, it always constantly pointed, if she was to follow her sincerity, her truth, it always constantly pointed to the fact that vulnerability is absolutely necessary to help people. And she only started compiling that much data to set out on this mission to try and put social working into a neat box you could measure and quantify and have a formula to, or not necessarily to go to that messy, unpredictable, superhuman realm of vulnerability, which is kind of relates to this quote of sometimes communication is not about the content. And it led her to a mental breakdown, but then when she found a therapist, she says her therapist called it a spiritual awakening. And I think, and to me, it also helped. The other person I think of Eckhart Tolle in his Story of Power Now. He starts by saying, you know, he went into this really, really profound depression, and the sentence that kept resonating with him was, I can't bear to live with myself. And then he kept saying that until at one point he came to this profound realization of, well, which one is he? Is he the I that can't take being himself? Or is he the self that the I can't take being? And that kind of led to this, through implication and through like wearing that word, wearing those words as knowledge, felt knowledge, it made him come to realize that he is not his ego, he is just the experience of consciousness. And that was kind of like a complete reset to peace and bliss and harmony and expansion and letting go. And that's what I think an awakening is when you have this inception in your brain to some kind of truth that encompasses so much of your being and allows you to let go so much that you define yourself through, that is actually unharmonious, that you either awaken to this new version of yourself and let go so many things that defined you before, but it defined your anxiety, defined your sense of smallness, ungroundedness, lack of empathy. To me, awakening and love always leads to more empathy. And if I think of Brene Brown's realization that vulnerability is essential, it leads to her realization that we are hardwired for connection. And that if we're hardwired for connection and vulnerability is actually strength, and vulnerability is actually what courage looks like, then being open around each other is our blueprint for health. And so health, being open and emotional and everything that most of us are scared of, according to our DNA, is the solution to the healthiest version of ourselves. And so by implication, there is somewhat of a perfect design in us, or at least a way more harmonious design if we are to be our healthiest self. So coming back to the class, I looked at them and I said, you might be a bit shy around. So coming back to my story in the classroom. So there's this girl who was shy about speaking out loud in front of the class, or at least to the class, and saying these sentences in Spanish. And I pointed out to them that the brain, this is something I like to drop a lot, the brain is a muscle. And just like any muscle, it needs to be exercised. And so let's say you're doing a bicep curl. The sign that that bicep curl has expanded, that it's taken on bulk, it's taken on mass, the next day that bicep is sore. Sore means the muscle fibers got torn a little bit, the muscle's expanded. If you eat well and nourish it, it'll come back bulkier, and there'll be more blood pumping through it, there'll be more muscle fiber to lift heavier weight next time. And so that soreness is, in a sense, is a sign of the gains. Similarly with the brain, when you're coming towards one of your edges, one of your limits for what you know, and usually on the other side of the known is the ego voice keeping us safe from potential threats in the unknown. And in this particular situation, I painted that as being like, so you don't know how the rest of the class is going to receive you. So you got this perfectionist aspect living inside of you that would rather not try than enter to prove if you're right or not about if you're going to be received on the other side of this, if you say things well or not. That there might be embarrassment on the other side of this. But at the same time, that anxiety tells you you're on the edge of opening new pathways in the brain. So if you want to exercise your brain muscle, you got to go into the anxiety and go through it with purpose and determination. Just like when you got to go through a bit of that pain with the bicep. And of course, too much anxiety, pushing through too much anxiety is going to traumatize you. Just like lifting too much weight in one go, your ego gets in the way, you think you can take on too much, you're going to pull that muscle. And then you need also nourishment, you need the right nutrition afterwards to recover. With our truth, it's each other. If I allow myself to expand, to understand a certain level of truth and let go all these other aspects of my identity as being core principles to who I am, who will I relate to? And I didn't say this in the class, this is for my YouTube version. I'm going to expand it to a spiritual sense. Who will I relate to, and who can I find support in? And so that comes back to our hardwiring for connection, guys. And so as what I did say to the class was that when you reach that edge and you push through the anxiety and you bring more of the unknown into the known, and it becomes more acquired knowledge, and you become less anxious saying things out loud even though you're not sure how they're going to be received, and you stand more firmly in your truth as a result of that anxiety being gone, so you're actually heard better and heard with more respect, then you are actually opening pathways in the brain when you push through that anxiety to new behaviors. And new behaviors in the brain mean new pathways available to you in real life, because it means you can turn situations into different outcomes. It means not just expansion of the brain, of the psyche, of pathways in the brain, but expansion of your potential for influence on your outside environment. You are potentially a bigger portal for change, for narrative, for your own truth, for coming into your own self, for being big. And the flip side to that, the positive side to that, is big not in an egotistic sense, because as we've gone over Brene Brown's spiritual awakening, it all comes back to the fact that, like, we don't want to be alone in this. To feel the highest joys, you have to be able to feel the lowest lows, and to feel the lowest lows safely, you have to know that people around you are also having this endeavor towards vulnerability, towards connection, towards a society that if you ask me, we've evolved to the point where we can all spend the time to have someone hold our hand as we expand. Like, we've technologically made obsolete so many physically grueling and unevolving jobs. Although a lot of menial tasks, a lot of long traditional craftsmanships and things like this, sowing of planting plants, sowing of the earth, woodwork, things like this, are actually part of a deeper wisdom. So we can't give away all our power to the robots. But given that so many jobs like transportation and things like this, robot drivers and things like this, that we're moving towards making so many positions in the workforce obsolete, I think there's nothing wrong with humans spending money with other humans, so we can just have accountability between each other. If we're going to keep the convention of money, which I think is a good thing, because it creates a balanced energy exchange in such large populations, that if we move towards a society where we all just looked at each other as teachers, and we all just wanted to grow and expand towards, I guess, enlightenment in a sense, whatever that might look to you, or it's just some kind of altruistic contribution, which is usually what the resonating of our truth wants to lead us to. A lot of the time. Anyway, before I get off track here. So yeah, coming back to this quote. Sometimes communication is less about content, but more about the rhythm that we enter into with each other that takes us to a larger and deeper place. And that larger and deeper place is an expansion of consciousness. Now pay attention to what resonates true with you. Oh yeah, and to finish my story with the class, is once I made that speech, and I had to stop because I was like, these kids are 13 years old, but guys, the future is going to be so much more, they're going to be so much more switched on us. We got to be ready, because I stopped at some point and I was like, are you guys still following? Have I done that thing of using too many big words and I've lost you guys, and you guys want to listen to me even less now because I'm the new teacher that I know? We're following you. I felt the energy in the room shift. I saw the girl laugh at her fear of reading these sentences in front of the class, and I feel like I offered that gift of love that I wish I had been given at that age, which would just have propelled anyone into a superhuman, of reframing anxiety as a measure for gains in the gym of consciousness. And I also looked to them and said, plus saying an answer, like being wrong or not being perfect at school in front of your classmates, where is a better and more safe place to do that? I mean, if you already knew everything, then it would be a waste of everyone's time for you to be here because you have nothing to learn. So if school wasn't based on the premise that you're probably going to fail until you are quite knowledgeable about things, you're probably going to make mistakes until you're quite knowledgeable about things, and the way to do that is to keep making those mistakes and keep trying to do it right over and over again. If you're not being supported, if the rest of your class is not making it a safe environment for that to happen, then you guys are failing each other. This is where I bring in my lesson for accountability in the classroom. Guys, it's amazing working with kids because it's such a safe space to create like an environment for learning and expansion that actually adults, we don't spend enough time seeking out anymore because of this crazy idea of what it means to be adult. Again, this is bleeding over into what could be other YouTube videos. I'm going to try and keep it short. But yeah, and I said, look at these students around you. I don't believe in my life that there's people I spent more time with in the same room than people I went to school with. Even with my own family, I don't think I spent that much time in the same room as them, as you guys will do with each other as this year 9, as this class, as this set of classmates. So if this is not a safe space for you to encourage and motivate each other's expansion, I don't know what is. So please capitalize on the potential for that. And I could feel this energy in the room. People wanted to laugh and shake off, and they looked at each other for a second like they were seeing each other for the first time. And then, of course, who you are sets back in, but in a playful way. The girl almost feigned to be shy about reading the answer. And hopefully slowly that class will grow to be students with a lot of potential. And so guys, if there's anything I want you to take out of this, is to reframe your anxiety. Especially if you're older in life and you're trying to figure out your purpose, and anxiety is one of those blockers. Take this little game, take this little snippet, this little reframe your anxiety, and just know that profound growth and change is marked by anxiety. It's marked by low-level depression symptoms. I'm not saying to ignore them, but if you know you're doing the work, you're doing self-care, you're doing all this stuff, you have a counselor, you're doing meditation, you're doing, all that stuff, whatever it is, you're finding your balance through what works for you, and you're researching and you're depthening your wisdom of self, and you're doing the work, and then one day or 1 week or 1 month you feel really shitty and you go, why am I doing all this work? Is it even changing? Nothing, everything feels the same. Guys, I implore you to look back a year, because this is how long a lot of this work takes. 2 years, 3 years. Look at how you spend your time, and look what honestly feels no longer worth spending your time doing. And commend yourself for that hard week. Commend yourself for that hard month. Because take a moment and think for a second, maybe because I've been doing so much work on myself, and I've been trying to excel so much, and I've been making all the right decisions for so much of the decisions that I make, even though we're never going to make all the right decisions. Maybe what I'm feeling right now is not a sign of things being stuck and shit. Maybe it's a sign of the work. And then feel that anxiety differently. And commend yourself for it. And go forth from that place and let yourself feel it. But also reward yourself for having earned it in the pursuit of something noble, something amazing for yourself and for everyone. Because ultimately, we lead by example. And ultimately, all useful knowledge becomes wisdom through lived experience. And I think more of us need to remind each other of this, and more of us need to hold a space like this to just really simply look at ourselves as a species of human beings and go, God damn, we have the potential to be something amazing. Consciousness has evolved to this form, and has given us so much say on our next stages of flow, we must be pretty damn important. Let's not fuck this up, and more than that, let's not focus on a negative. Let's celebrate. So I imagine that's all it really takes. It's immense, authentic, deep, non-numbing, love-filled celebrating. So guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Healer Holly,